He pulled his own son off oxygen. Accident, or did he need that switch?
He ripped the oxygen mask off my face and yanked me off the stretcher. Get out. He needs it more. I hit the pavement hard, sirens screaming behind me, red lights flashing across the empty road. I'm Eli, 17, and 5 minutes ago, I was the one they said couldn't breathe right after the crash. But my dad didn't even look at me twice. He dragged me out of the ambulance and shoved my little brother in, shouting at the paramedic like it was already decided. I tried to speak. Nothing came out but air. My chest burned, my vision blurred. The paramedic hesitated, then stepped back. The doors slammed. The siren kicked in. And as the ambulance pulled away without me, I started smiling. Because in that exact moment, something finally made sense. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The cold hit me first. Not the kind that makes you shiver, the kind that settles into your lungs and just stays there. I stayed where I fell, half sitting, half collapsed against the curb, watching the red lights shrink into the distance. Nobody rushed to me. A couple of neighbors stood across the street, arms folded, whispering. One of them pulled out a phone, but not to help, just to record. "Kid, can you hear me?" someone said. A police officer crouched in front of me, his voice steady but distant, like it had to travel through water to reach me. I nodded slowly. "Where does it hurt?" I almost laughed. Almost. Everywhere. But that wasn't the part that mattered. I lifted my hand slightly, fingers shaking, and pointed weakly down the road where the ambulance had disappeared. "My brother," I managed. The officer glanced in that direction, then back at me, confused. "They've got him. We'll get you help too, all right? Another unit's on the way." Another unit. Second place. I nodded again, like that made sense, like that was normal. Behind him, my dad was already talking to another officer. Calm, controlled, his voice carried just enough. My younger son, he was in shock. He's always had complications. I told them he needed to go first. He didn't look over at me once. Not once. The officer in front of me followed my gaze and then stood up, walking toward my dad. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught pieces. Other boy looked worse. Father insisted. Split-second decision. I closed my eyes for a second, letting the noise blur together, the radios, the footsteps, the distant siren fading into nothing. Then I opened them again. And I smiled. Not wide, not obvious, just enough. Because this wasn't sudden. It felt sudden to everyone else. The crash, the decision, the chaos. But to me, it lined up too cleanly. Too perfectly. A flicker of movement caught my attention. One of the paramedics, the one who'd stepped back, was standing a few feet away now, watching me. He looked uneasy. Like he knew something didn't sit right. Our eyes met for half a second. I tilted my head just slightly, still smiling. He looked away first. Good. That meant he remembered. "Stay with me, Eli," the officer said, returning, kneeling again. "Ambulance is 2 minutes out." 2 minutes. I let my head rest back against the curb and stared up at the night sky. No stars, just the faint glow of streetlights bleeding into low clouds. 2 minutes was more than enough. My fingers curled slowly against my hoodie pocket. Still there. Still folded. Still real. I didn't take it out. Not yet. Not here. Footsteps approached fast, different rhythm, heavier. I didn't need to look to know it was him. My dad stopped just short of me. For a second, there was silence. Then, finally, he spoke low enough that only I could hear. "You'll be fine," he said. Not concern. Not relief. A statement. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see him. His face was calm. Too calm. Like we weren't sitting in the middle of flashing lights and broken glass. Like this was just handled. I held his gaze and smiled a little wider. Something shifted in his expression. Just for a second. Confusion. "What?" he asked quietly. My voice barely came out, rough and thin. "You picked the wrong one." His brow tightened instantly. "What are you talking about?" But I didn't answer. Because right then, another siren cut through the air louder, closer, growing fast. The second ambulance. People started moving again. The officer turned. The paramedic stepped forward. Everything reset into motion. But my dad didn't move. He was still looking at me. Really looking this time. Trying to figure out why I wasn't panicking. Why I wasn't angry. Why I was smiling. I let him sit with it. Just for a second longer. Then I shifted my eyes past him. Toward the road. "Tomorrow morning," I whispered, barely audible. "What?" he snapped, sharper now. I met his eyes one last time. And said, clear enough this time, "Tomorrow morning is going to be fun." The second ambulance screeched to a stop beside us. And my dad's expression finally changed. You think you know someone until one sentence rewrites everything. That night didn't start with sirens. It started with silence. We were at the dinner table, same seats, same routine. My dad at the head, Noah to his right, me across from him like always. Plates half full, TV humming quietly in the background, ignored. "I got the results back today," I said, breaking the silence. "Physics exam, 94. My dad didn't look up. He kept cutting into his food like I hadn't spoken. But Noah shifted in his chair immediately. "Dad, my wrist still hurts from practice." That did it. My dad looked up fast. "Did you ice it? I told you not to push too hard. You need to be careful." "I did, but after dinner I'll take a look. We might need to get it checked again." Again. I sat there, fork hovering mid-air, waiting. Just a second. Just a glance. Nothing. "It's the highest score in the class," I added. Still nothing. "Good," he said flatly, like he was confirming the weather, then turned back to Noah. "Does it hurt when you rotate it like this?" That was it. Conversation over. I lowered my fork slowly. It wasn't new, none of it was new, but something about that night felt sharper. Like everything was just a little more deliberate. Like he wasn't just ignoring me, he was choosing to. Halfway through dinner, my dad's phone buzzed on the table. He checked it, and something in his face changed. Not panic, not worry. Focus. "I need to take this," he said, already standing. He stepped into his office and shut the door behind him. I kept eating, slower now, listening. Noah didn't even notice. He was scrolling on his phone, one-handed, complaining under his breath about his wrist. I stood up quietly and moved closer to the hallway. The door wasn't fully closed. "Tomorrow morning," my dad was saying, voice low. "It has to be tomorrow." A pause. "No, I understand the conditions. I'm not stupid." Another pause. Then, sharper, I said, "I'll handle it. Both of them are covered." My stomach tightened slightly. Both of them. I leaned a little closer. "No mistakes this time," the voice on the other end must have said, because my dad exhaled hard. "There won't be," he replied. "Everything's already in place." The floor creaked under my foot. Silence. The door opened instantly. My dad stood there, phone still in his hand, eyes locked on mine. For a second, neither of us said anything. "How long have you been standing there?" he asked. "Just came to grab water," I said, holding his gaze. He studied me for a moment, not angry, measuring. Then he nodded once. "Go sit down." I did. Dinner finished in silence after that. But the air felt different. Tighter. Later that night, Noah passed me in the hallway, heading to his room. "Dad said everything changes tomorrow," he said casually, like it didn't matter. I stopped. "What does that mean?" He shrugged. "Don't know. He just said I should stay close to him." "Why?" "I don't know, Eli," he snapped, suddenly defensive. "He just said it's important, okay?" He shut his door before I could say anything else. I stood there for a second. Then I turned toward my dad's office. The door was closed. Locked. I waited. Listened. Nothing. It took me 10 minutes to find the spare key. Inside, everything was neat. Too neat. Desk cleared except for a single folder. My name was on it. Not handwritten. Printed. I stepped closer, pulse steady, and opened it. Pages, legal documents, numbers, terms I didn't fully understand, but I didn't need to understand all of it. Just enough. My name. Noah's name. A date. Tomorrow morning. And one line highlighted. Primary designation subject to medical determination at time of incident. I stared at it for a long second. Then exhaled slowly. "So that's what this is about," I murmured. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned. Crashes don't feel real at first. They feel chosen. We were already in the car when I realized something was off. My dad was driving. Noah sat in the front seat, leaning back carefully, still nursing his wrist like it might break if he moved wrong. I was in the back, watching the road through the windshield, tracking every turn. We weren't going the usual way. "Where are we going?" I asked. No answer. The streetlights passed in a steady rhythm, too fast for a casual drive. "Dad." "I know where I'm going," he said sharply, eyes fixed ahead. Noah glanced at him, then back at his phone. He said we needed to take a different route. "For what?" I pressed. My dad's jaw tightened. "Because I said so." That ended it, at least out loud. But I kept watching. Left turn, not normal. Another right, definitely not normal. We were heading toward the old industrial road, barely any traffic, long stretches without cameras. I knew it because we never used it. Not once. My fingers curled slightly against the seat. Then Noah spoke again, softer this time. "Are we almost there?" "Yeah," my dad said. "Just stay calm, all right?" Stay calm. The words didn't fit the situation. Not for a drive, not for anything normal. I leaned forward slightly. "What's tomorrow morning?" Silence. Then, without warning, my dad hit the brakes hard. The car jolted. Tires screeched against asphalt. "Stop asking questions," he snapped. The air inside the car shifted instantly, tight, electric. Noah flinched. "Dad." Enough. We started moving again. Faster now. That's when the headlights appeared. Too close. Too sudden. A truck coming from the side road, its horn blasting, lights flooding the car in white. Everything after that broke apart. The impact slammed through us like a wall, metal folding, glass exploding. My head snapped sideways, then forward, then nothing made sense anymore. For a few seconds, there was no sound, just pressure. Then it all came rushing back. Noah crying, the engine hissing, something dripping. I tried to inhale and couldn't. My chest tightened like it was locked from the inside. "Dad," Noah's voice shook. My arm. "I'm here," my dad said immediately. Immediately. I was still in the back seat, half crushed against the door, struggling to pull in even a shallow breath. "Dad," I forced out, barely audible. He didn't turn. "Not yet." "I'm here," he repeated to Noah. Then, finally, he glanced back at me. Just a glance. His eyes scanned me quickly, calculating. Blood. Breathing. Movement. Then he looked away. Sirens started in the distance. Fast. Getting closer. My dad exhaled slowly, like he'd just made a decision. "This still works," he muttered under his breath. I froze. Not from pain. From that, "This still works." The words sat there, clear, untouched by panic. The sirens got louder. Red and blue lights flickered across the cracked windshield. People were already starting to gather, doors opening, voices calling out. "Stay with me," someone shouted from outside. The driver's door opened. My dad stepped out first. "Help," he called, urgency perfectly placed. "My younger son, he's hurt." Younger son. Not both. Not me. Noah was already being helped out of the passenger side, crying louder now, clutching his arm like it might fall off. I tried to move. Pain shot through my chest instantly. "Back here," a paramedic yelled, running toward my side. "There's another one." Finally, hands pulled the door open, metal screeching as it bent away from me. "Easy, easy," the paramedic said, checking my pulse, my breathing. "He's not getting enough air. We need to move now." A mask came down over my face. Oxygen flooded in. For a second, just one, I thought that was it, that I'd made it into the right timeline. Then my dad's voice cut through everything. "He's fine," he said, stepping closer. "My younger son needs priority." The paramedic didn't look up. "Sir, this one's struggling to breathe. He goes first." "No," my dad said, firmer now. "You don't understand. He has a condition. He needs immediate transport." The paramedic hesitated. Just for a second, that was all it took. "Noah," my dad called. "Stay with me, okay? You're going to be all right." The framing was perfect. The urgency. The focus. The shift. And suddenly, it wasn't about who looked worse. It was about who sounded worse. I lay there, oxygen mask fogging with every shallow breath, watching it happen. Watching him do it. Then I heard it again, quieter this time, almost to himself. This still works. And that's when I knew. Exactly what he thought he was doing. Exactly what he thought he was about to win. By the time they lifted me onto the stretcher, the decision was already made. And seconds later, I was on the ground, watching the ambulance doors close, watching my brother take my place. My hand slipped into my pocket slowly, fingers brushing against the folded paper I'd taken earlier. I pulled it out just enough to see the line again, now smeared faintly with blood. Primary beneficiary transfer upon medical confirmation. I let out a slow breath, then smiled. You just confirmed it for me. By the time they realized something was wrong, it was already documented. The hospital waiting room smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee. I sat alone in a stiff plastic chair, a thin blanket draped over my shoulders, dried blood still clinging to my sleeve. They'd patched me up bare minimum, enough to keep me stable. Not enough to forget. Across the room, a TV played quietly. No one was really watching it. Every few minutes, a nurse passed by. Each time, their eyes lingered on me a little longer than necessary, because I shouldn't have been there. Not like this. Not second. Eli Carter. I looked up. A police officer stood near the doorway, notepad in hand. Same one from the scene. I nodded. Yeah. He pulled a chair closer and sat across from me. I need to go over a few things again, just to make sure we've got everything accurate. Okay. His pen hovered. You said your dad told the paramedics your brother needed priority? Yes. And you disagreed with that? I met his eyes. I couldn't breathe. He paused, then wrote something down. Did your father check on you before making that decision? No. Another note. Did he say anything to you directly? I thought about it for a second, then nodded. Yeah. What did he say? I didn't look away. He said I'd be fine. The officer's pen stopped moving for just a second longer than it should have. Then he continued writing. All right, he said, closing the notebook. Thank you. But he didn't stand up right away. Instead, he leaned back slightly, studying me. You seem very calm, he said. I gave a small shrug. Should I not be? He didn't answer that. He just stood up and walked away. Good. Let him think about it. A door down the hallway swung open suddenly. A nurse stepped out, speaking quickly to another staff member. You need to recheck his vitals. Something's off. Which one? The younger one. Noah. I tilted my head slightly, listening. He stabilized in transit, the second nurse said. What changed? I don't know yet. Just get the doctor. They disappeared down the hall. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. Right on time. A few minutes later, another voice cut in sharper, more controlled. Who authorized the transport order? A doctor this time. The father insisted, someone replied. There was confusion at the scene. Well, there shouldn't have been, the doctor said. The injury reports don't match the transport priority. There it was. The first crack. I reached into my hoodie pocket again and pulled out the folded document fully this time. No rush. No hesitation. I flattened it against my knee and read through it line by line, ignoring the faint tremor in my hands. Names, numbers, conditions, and then the part that mattered, 2 dependent beneficiaries listed under a single high-value policy. Clause, payout structure adjusted based on medical classification during emergency incident. I kept reading. Primary designation must be confirmed through first response medical transport and initial hospital intake. I stopped there. That was it. That was the anchor. Everything hinged on that moment. Not the injury itself. Not the severity, the classification, who got taken first, who got labeled critical. I let the paper rest in my hands. Then continued, if conditions are not met at point of first response, alternate payout conditions are void. Void. I smiled again, slower this time. Because I finally saw the whole shape of it. Not every detail, but enough. My dad hadn't planned the crash. That part was real. But the moment it happened, he saw an opportunity. And he moved fast. He tried to control the outcome. Control the designation. Control the payout. But he made one mistake. He chose too quickly. Based on assumption. Based on habit. based on who he always chose. I folded the paper carefully and slid it back into my pocket. Footsteps approached again faster this time. The same paramedic from the scene stepped into the waiting room, scanning until he found me. Our eyes locked instantly. He walked over, tension written all over his face. "I need to ask you something," he said. I didn't move. "Sure." "At the scene, your father said your brother had a condition. Is that true?" I held his gaze. "No," I said calmly. "That's not true." His jaw tightened slightly. "I thought so," he muttered. Behind him, the doctor's voice rose again down the hallway. "This doesn't make sense. We need to review the scene report now." The paramedic exhaled sharply, running a hand over his face. Then he looked back at me. "Something's not right here." I nodded once. "I know." A loud alarm suddenly echoed from down the hall. Voices overlapped. Footsteps rushed. The younger one just stabilized, but there's a complication. Everything accelerated at once. I leaned back in my chair, completely still, watching it unfold, listening to it unravel. And quietly, under my breath, I said, "Right on time, everything hinges on one moment, and my dad picked the wrong one." By morning, the hospital didn't feel the same. It wasn't quiet anymore. It was controlled. Too controlled. Staff moved faster, spoke lower, avoided eye contact just a little too deliberately. That kind of shift doesn't happen without a reason. It happens when something gets flagged. And it had. I was sitting in the same chair, different blanket, IV now taped to my arm. Someone had finally decided I mattered enough to monitor properly. Across the hall, 2 police officers stood talking to a doctor, not casually, focused. One of them was flipping through a report, tapping a section repeatedly. "Injury pattern doesn't match prioritization," the doctor said. "That's what we're trying to understand," one of the officers replied. Understand? That was the word they used when something didn't line up cleanly. I watched them for a few seconds, then looked down at my phone. 7:42 a.m. Tomorrow morning, we were in it. Footsteps approached. I didn't need to look up this time. My dad, he stopped a few feet in front of me, like he wasn't sure how close he should get. For the first time, he didn't look composed. He looked tired. "What did you tell them?" he asked. No greeting, no concern. Straight to control. I leaned back slightly in the chair. The truth. His jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're talking about." I held his gaze. "Then explain it." Silence stretched between us. He didn't. Instead, he shifted tactics, softer tone. "Eli, last night was chaotic. People make decisions under pressure. You weren't thinking clearly." "I wasn't the one making decisions," I said. That landed. He exhaled slowly, eyes flicking toward the officers across the hall, calculating again, still trying. "You're misinterpreting things," he said. "There are legal structures you don't understand." I nodded once. I understand enough. I reached into my pocket. His eyes followed the movement instantly. That was all the confirmation I needed. I pulled out the folded document and held it up between us. His expression changed. Not dramatically, but enough. Recognition. "You went into my office," he said quietly. "You left it unlocked," I replied. "That's not yours too." "It has my name on it." He didn't answer. Because it did. I unfolded the paper, slowly, deliberately, letting him see exactly which section I was looking at. "Primary designation must be confirmed through first response medical transport," I read aloud. His eyes didn't leave the page. "You knew that," I continued. "That's why you pushed them. That's why you didn't even look at me." "That's not—" "You thought I wasn't critical," I cut in. "You thought Noah would qualify better." Silence. Heavy this time. Not defensive. Not dismissive. Just stuck. "You said it," I added. "At the scene. This still works." That did it. His composure cracked just slightly, but enough for it to be real. "That's not what I meant," he said quickly. But the speed of it gave him away. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean forward. I just said it clearly. "You tried to control who got labeled first." He looked away. And that was the closest thing to an admission I was going to get. Behind us, footsteps approached. One of the officers, "Mr. Carter," he said, stopping beside my dad. We need to ask you a few more questions. My dad straightened slightly, resetting his posture. Of course. But before he could step away, the officer added, about the statements you made to the paramedics. That pause right there, that half-second hesitation, that's where everything shifted. I already explained, my dad started. We'd like you to explain it again, the officer said evenly. No room to maneuver. No room to redirect. Just pressure. My dad glanced at me once more. Not angry, not even frustrated, just aware. Then he followed the officer down the hall. I watched him go. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Because it wasn't just what he did. It was where he did it. In front of paramedics. In front of neighbors. In front of police. Too many witnesses. Too many versions. Too many inconsistencies. And now, documentation. Everything he needed to make it work. Required precision. Timing. Control. And he lost all three the second he made that choice. A nurse passed by again, this time stopping beside me. Your brother's stable, she said. He's asking for you. I nodded. Okay. I didn't move right away. Because I already knew what I'd see. Noah, sitting in a bed that should have been mine. Confused. Probably scared. Not because of the crash, but because things didn't feel the same anymore. Because somewhere, even if he didn't understand it yet, he knew something was off. That he'd been placed somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. Eventually, I stood up. Slowly, carefully. Every movement still pulled at my chest, but it was manageable now. I walked down the hallway, past closed doors, past quiet conversations that stopped when I got too close. Room 214. I pushed the door open. Noah looked up immediately. Eli, he said, relief hitting his face fast. You're okay. Yeah, I said. I stepped inside. He shifted slightly, wincing. They said I got here just in time. I looked at him for a second, then nodded. Yeah, I said again. You did. He hesitated. Dad said, he said it was important you stayed back, that I needed. He told you that? I asked. Noah nodded. I held his gaze. Then, calmly, he was wrong. Noah didn't respond. But something in his expression changed. Not fully, not all at once, but enough to start asking questions. Enough to stop accepting answers. I stayed for a few more minutes. Didn't explain anything. Didn't need to. Because this wasn't about convincing anyone anymore. It was already moving. Outside of me. Through reports. Through statements. Through people who had seen it happen. By the time I left the room, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Eli Carter, a voice said. This is regarding a policy review tied to last night's incident. We'll need to schedule a formal statement. There it was. I stepped into the hallway, leaning lightly against the wall. Sure, I said. When? Soon, the voice replied. There are discrepancies we need clarified. I almost smiled again. Almost. Yeah, I said quietly. I figured. The call ended. I slid the phone back into my pocket and looked down the hallway one last time. At the officers. At the closed doors. At everything starting to tighten around one decision. Then I turned and walked toward the exit. Outside, the morning air was sharp, clean, different from the night before. Quieter. Final. I paused near the glass doors, catching my reflection for a second. No smile this time. Just stillness. Clarity. Next morning was fun, I murmured under my breath. Then I pushed the door open and stepped out. Just not the way you planned. Behind me, everything he built was already starting to collapse. Because when it mattered most,
So, was this desperation or a plan? Rewatch closely. What detail did everyone miss?